What is it with you? What do you got, a death wish or something?
That's what it takes. I just want to race.
All right, Diesel heads, it's episode 38 of the Chronicles of Diesel, the only thing that covers everything Vin Diesel: games, movies, music. I guess not really yet. Television, even executive produced things. Maybe we'll see. My name is Ethan, and with me here through the darkest of days is Devin.
You give the orders, but don't swing the axe.
That was a good line. I'm surprised you didn't pick any of Vin Diesel's lines during this show.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I did write one down. It said, "Let's do this," and I think that's the only thing. But it didn't sound like Vin, which I guess is a good or bad thing, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
But it was at the preview at the end of spoilers.
Right. Does that even count?
Does it even count?
There was it was a long coming soon thing. It was basically given major beats in it. I'm like, all right, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later. All right, here, if you guys, out there are like, what the heck is this? I thought this was the Sonic Movie Show. Yes, this is the Sonic Movie Show. Here on the Sonic Movie Show, we have another podcast as well called The Chronicles of Diesel. Devin, you've been here for every single one of them, so you know by now. Chronicles of Diesel goes through chronologically every movie, essentially, Vin Diesel has done, the few video games he's done, etc. And we kind of rank and review them. Although, our very last episode, special episode 6, I think it was, back in December, we gutted the ranking. We said, screw this. We're having second opinions on this stuff. It's fun, I'm sure, to have you listen to me rattle it off twice.
I just love the chaotic. I miss the chaos. This is too organized and too polished. What happened to the underground Chronicles of Diesel,
But, I mean, it's not that bad because we have multiple smaller lists now, as they are now thrown into tiers, pools, if you will, where their specific order.
I miss the debates of, is this better than the pacifier?
And it's like, bro, I feel like we barely remember the pacifier. Why are we making these arguments? It's just based off how much we like or dislike the thing right now. That's... But who knows? Maybe in 5 more years, because this is also about the 5th anniversary of the Sonic Movie Show podcast itself.
In general, yeah.
Maybe in 5 more years, we'll start rewatching these. Maybe we will. I don't know. I'm not going to say yes or no because I don't really want to. But maybe in 5 years.
Yeah, don't make any promises, okay?
No promises. I will make one promise, though. This episode will be less than 5 hours long. And I think to kind of kick off the 4.5 hour journey, I almost said slog. That's a negative word. This is a journey. We alluded at the beginning. We're in the darkest of days right now for the podcast.
That's one way to put it.
And I mean, if it gets darker, we might stop. I don't know. So why don't you tell us what's going on in the world of Vin Diesel news, your VNN network?
I mean, this came out I think late December. I think it was honestly a week or so after we did. I think it was late November we recorded it, but I think it went up December 1st or something like that. It was the Christmas special of Guardians, right? Was that correct, or was it I Am Groot 2?
I Am Groot 2 was the last thing.
Okay, whatever the last one we did, this came out a week or two afterwards. It was all over Twitter I guess in Twitter world it wasn't on that long because Twitter's always moving on to the next thing. But it was all over Twitter. I think it dropped in the evening or something. But yeah, it kind of ruined my day. But there's really no easy way to go about this. So I think we should just quote an article, a Rolling Stone article that I think does a good job kind of describing what happened. I guess this is kind of a trigger warning for anyone who has maybe dealt with I'm just gonna say essay that maybe you want to skip 20 seconds, not 20 seconds, a couple minutes ahead, because I'm going to kind of break down what's happened. Basically, give you a moment to skip if you don't want to hear it. All right. Vin Diesel's been is going to court for sexual assault. It was brought against him late last year, so this December, and it's by a woman who briefly worked as the actor's assistant in 2010. I'm just gonna read this Rolling Stone article, so there's no me. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Right.
On Monday, this is as of Monday, March 25th, so this is the latest I could find about this. On Monday, March 25th, Diesel's lawyers answered the suit, saying the actor denied generally and specifically each and every allegation leveled by the plaintiff, whose name is Asta. I don't know how to pronounce their last name. Jonasson. Similar filings were made on behalf of other defendants in the case: Diesel's production company, One Race Productions, and the actor's sister, as well as Samantha Vincent, who's a producer at the company. Jonathan accused Diesel of sexually assaulting her in his Atlanta hotel room 1 week after she's been hired to work for him. She says One Race then fired her the next day in retaliation for resisting Diesel's advances. And this section here is going to talk about affirmative defense, which for my research, I'm not a lawyer. We're not lawyers. Should preface that. We're not experts in law. But a good example of affirmative defense is self-defense, where let's say someone invades your home and they're attacking you and you kill them or something like that. You beat them into a pulp. And maybe you're getting sued for murder, and be like, you would be doing an affirmative defense for self-defense is a classic example of affirmative defense in a lawyer case, or in a court case is a classic example of affirmative defense is like self-defense. So I'm gonna preface that this is what Vin's camp is doing. And basically affirmative defense, the one caveat compared to other defenses is usually the actions that are described by the plaintiffs or the person accusing you is you're basically admitting that happened, but the context of what happened or how it happened.
There's not refuting the action, it's the intent or context.
Yes. That's basically what affirmative defense is in layman's terms. Obviously, when you get into court, sometimes there's lawyers know how to work the system and be like, hey, even if you are not guilty, believe you're not guilty, sometimes you gotta, take a guilty charge because maybe you won't get prison time, whatever it is, just as using it as an example. But anyways, here's what Rolling Stone wrote. The new filing puts forward numerous affirmative defense claims which could help Diesel's lawyers rebuff Jonasson's.
You want to say Johansson?
I know, because there's not an H there. Jonasson's J. I'm just gonna say J. Allegations if the defense sufficiently proves them in court. Among the affirmative defense listed is consent. This is probably the biggest one, suggesting J allegedly gave Diesel consent. Unclean hands, suggesting J may have done something unethical in relation to the lawsuit, which would warrant its dismissal. And legitimately business reasons, suggesting Diesel has legitimate business reasons which were not a pretext for retaliation for taking certain employment actions, if any. In a statement, Jay's lawyer, Claire Lise Cutley of Greenberg Gross LLP, told Rolling Stone, quote, "This response is an example of the victim blaming rhetoric that can often arise when people speak out about sexual assault. We are proud to represent Miss J and hold Vin Diesel and those who are allowed and covered up his sexual assault accountable." A lawyer for Diesel did not immediately return Rolling Stone's request for comment. In the original lawsuit, which was filed last December, Jay said she was hired to work for Diesel on September 2nd, 2010, and flew out to Atlanta, where Fast 5 was being filmed that same day. She claimed, and this, folks, is where it gets a little detailed, so once again, if you need to skip, she claimed that 1 week later, on September 10th, Diesel groped her, forcibly kissed her, and masturbated in front of her in his hotel room. She claimed that One Race then fired her the next day in retaliation for resisting Diesel's advances. Jay brought the suit under California's AB 2777 law, which, like New York's Adult Survivors Act, allows some sexual misconduct claims to be brought in civil court regardless of the statute of limitations. I don't know what that means there. I feel like it's kind of lawyer speak. But basically, this law lets you bring someone to court, is my understanding. Jay also said she was compelled to bring the suit because of the Me Too movement, which is, I guess, was what, 2018, 2017, I feel like was when around that was blowing up, where a lot of, that's when like Harvey Weinstein got outed by like 50 people. At the time the suit was filed, Diesel's lawyer, Brian Friedman, issued a statement saying the actor, quote, categorically denies this claim in its entirety. He added, "This is the first he's ever heard about this more than 13-year-old claim made by a perpetually 9-day employee. There is clear evidence which completely refutes this outlandish allegations." So that's all we have so far. I think this article does a good job of just explaining both sides. I'm just going to say my personal opinion is definitely fucking shitty. Honestly, like when it first came out, I'm like, fuck, I don't even know what to do, like with the show and everything. But I guess at this point, we're going to try our best to keep doing the show. But if more shit comes out,
if it gets more truthful, then who knows?
And obviously, I also want to preface that sexual assault's always very hard to prove in court, just generally speaking, because it's always a
he said, she said type
kind of
thing.
situation.
Right.
They said this, they said that, and also, it is a 13-year-old allegation. So it makes it really hard.
First, I do want to just say, like, by default, you should believe a victim of anything when they tell their story, and then you find the evidence, and you would want to hope they're telling the truth. It is not impossible for at one point in time someone has made a claim like this and had been lying. I'm not saying that this person is lying, and I'm not because when you said like inspired. Paraphrasing here, inspired by the Me Too movement. That was a while ago. That it is like, why not now? But like, why didn't all those women talk about Bill Cosby decades ago, type of thing? So it's not exactly the same. Some gut reactions of like, I had this thought recently about something else. I forgot what it was, but like, I think movies, television, etc., have given us a expected. The expected like innocent types of reactions and responses to being framed for something, being blamed for something, waking up and finding your husband was killed, or this and that. Like we have these like, oh, this is how someone's supposed to act when they are innocent and or when they are a victim of this and that. But like people just aren't that. People are. Two people can experience the same type of thing very differently. So like, yeah, she could have waited until 2023 for this for very valid reasons, because we don't know what's in her head, you know what I mean? And I don't know if I personally would have jumped the gun, so to speak, earlier than that. Like, I can't say. So I just want to say, like, by default, like, yes, we want this to not be true for the sake of him. But if it is true, then it's true. You know what I mean? And by default, you want to believe the victims, even if you hope it's not true. Like, you could very easily look at this and be like, oh, she worked there for a week and a half, and yeah, she's just trying to get a payday. Like, yeah, if that is true, then that is true. But you can't hope for one truth and only accept that if it becomes true. You know what I mean? I don't know.
And
long rant, but like,
and I just feel like, once again, like in the case of sexual assault specifically, like just even the last 20 years, this has been such a with the Me Too movement, right? I think that blew up because it felt like for a lot of probably people, it was like this now or never kind of felt like that. You know what I mean? Where you're scared to speak up because you're gone in the industry. Especially in the movie industry here. A lot of people don't get these opportunities, right? That's how especially people like Harvey Weinstein use that as leverage. That's why he was able to get away for it with so long.
Vince McMahon, we know that now too.
Yeah,
it's
just it's a power thing. But yeah, I mean, I really got nothing to say outside of just like it's disappointing and kind of gross in a way for me. That's like my gut reaction to it. I think it's one of those things that we might not hear any updates on this for a while. That's also kind of the
Right.
shitty thing is that where it's in that kind of limbo. And also, even if like the court case goes in Diesel's way, that doesn't mean it didn't, like you said, doesn't mean it did not happen either. And also when you're talking about consent, that's a whole other subject.
I mean,
I can't,
and
I don't know
it's
if how that goes
very
in court
easy to
cases. So
retroactively apply or remove consent to a situation too, depending on how you feel now. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't consent to doing this fucking podcast, even though I did at the time. Now I'm upset.
I'm just saying, like, in a court sense, it's like we said, it's very much they said this, they acted this way, and that's where it's gonna get tough. That's why a lot of these cases wind up falling through, and then people assume since the court says, "Oh, it fell through," whatever means it didn't happen. But
I mean, there's also the third option: this gets settled out of court, and then it's like, well, we don't actually know now for real. It's just they've come to an agreement, and I will say, we're gonna continue the show until it gets worse. If it's like, because like right now we can operate under the like maybe this isn't real, and it's just the first time we've heard anything like this. We've heard he's been like an asshole on set in relation to The Rock.
Oh, that's the next topic of news we'll talk about. But
before we get to that, I'll just say like we are gonna continue the show, but this. As of right now, we're just kind of waiting and seeing. You know what I mean? Yeah. We don't want to like stop it now and have it be a fake thing, but we also don't want to like promise we're going to continue no matter what.
Yeah, it also can be a comfortability thing if like 6 months and maybe some little detail comes out that we're like, you know what, we're not doing it. Like
6 months might also be the amount of time until the next episode. We'll talk about that
soon
too.
But yeah, it's just. We didn't want to just pretend this didn't happen either. I think this is totally fair and constructive, and we're also not defending defending if Diesel did do these things, which, like I said, with affirmative defense claim, that kind of gets into the waters of it sounds like maybe those things did happen. Just of the consent part is the tough thing. But
or it's like, well, it's the only way for us to win is if it's almost like a negotiation.
That's what I was talking about earlier.
Even if it's not true, we will pretend it is just to, I don't know. Who knows?
Well, that's what I'm saying when we get into like court cases, right? Like there's those kind of things where take the guilty plea is like a common thing in
because
those
it's
like in true crime shows or whatever. It's like I wasn't a murderer. But like I was in the wrong place, wrong time. I took the guilty plea because it would be 5 years in prison versus if I defended it and lost, it'd be 20. Those kind of things. So yeah, court systems aren't perfect by any means in the United States. But yeah, I think I with what you said, I just want to echo it too, where it's like we're gonna keep doing the show, but for some reason we decide not to. Probably is because of this, or we just keep moving on, but we'll talk about it when it happens.
Update episode and be like, hey, goodbye.
Yeah.
Watch our other podcasts.
But I definitely, like I said, like when it first came out, I was like, it just did leave a kind of shitty taste in my mouth. Of like, dude, we ended it. Like it felt like we just ended it in a way of like, we did it. We caught up. It's like, really? Like, but so yeah, I hope, I don't know. I guess there's no hope out of this. More of just that it's shitty. It's happening in any context. It's kind of how I'm just feeling about it. But gut reaction was definitely, fuck me. God damn it. Like, why? God.
Why him? It have been like, I don't know, Tyrese or someone else.
No.
Adjacent to what we're doing.
No, I mean, I don't want this to happen in any context. It's just.
Right.
It's just. Ugh. But.
Anyway.
Yeah. We needed. I didn't want to say this for the end of the episode. It had to take the.
Oh yeah, well then that would be weird. Then it'd be
I only want to say rip the Band-Aid off because I feel like that's not tasteful. But just we had to get the shit news out of the way to get to. Right. Well, I have more news. I guess it's not even good news in the sense compared to this. It's I guess something we've mostly known. But John Cena has done another interview on. what is called the Armchair Expert podcast, which is hosted by Dax Shepard, who sounds familiar. I don't know who he is, but it sounds familiar. But he went on there just to kind of talk about mostly his career up until this point, because I don't think he was promoting anything specifically. He talks about his WWE days and actually how he had beef with The Rock, mostly because The Rock, when John Cena was kind of starting to become the new face of the WWE, he was the new kind of hero of that the lore. I don't follow WWE, but that's my understanding. He was kind of one of the main good guys, right?
Right. Babyface.
That the Rock was starting to dip his toes into Hollywood and starting to making acting kind of his full-time gig where he wanted to go next. And at the time, they actually started some beef because Cena thought the Rock was kind of one of the faces of WWE, and him leaving kind of hurts everybody. And I can kind of see that natural reaction being like, hey dude, like what we have going on here is great. Why are you going to be an actor? Like, you're already making good money. You're probably getting good sponsorships, doing all that, but The Rock wanted to do acting. And of course you're like, oh, that's funny because John Cena is probably known now more as an actor than anything. And I think that part of it, him coming to that realization, I think that's what kind of ended the beef, was probably more of a, hey, I didn't know you could maybe do both. And honestly, John Cena, arguably, in my opinion, like, we love The Rock on this show, don't get me wrong, but I think John Cena has a lot better roles and is able to do a little bit more different things, at least the stuff I've seen him in. He knows how to be comedic when he needs to, but he also, I think, has done some other fun roles. But to each their own, doesn't matter what you think. But I wanted to bring that up because he was asked about the Vin Diesel and The Rock beef that was happening, and he asked him, like, how did you feel about it, being kind of in the movies now, in two movies now. I guess the first quote I'll say here is, John Cena said, "There's certainly rumors about that. I can't deny that. You have two very alpha-driven people. You get two, there can only be one." And then he said, where was it? He did conclude saying, I've been invited to someone's home and to someone's family, regardless of how they look physically in comparison to another human being. This is one IP that has had 9 installments and is an action movie. That's rarefied air. At the very least, there's got to be respect for that. He says, I'm a guest in the Fast family, saying I'm trying not to get into the sandbox. That's not my thing. I'm grateful for what you've given me, and I just want to be the best fire truck I can, is what he described. I think he said fire truck in the sense of putting out any fires, that maybe he was trying to be more the median between the two. But
really? That's not how I read it.
How would you read it? I guess maybe I misunderstood what you meant by
I read
fire
it
truck.
like, hey, I'm the fire truck. There's the garbage truck. There's the police car. I'm just gonna do the best I can in my
maybe
role.
That's what he meant.
I'm this guy.
I see that now.
It is weird because he's also talking about a sandbox, and I don't know. Maybe this entire interview had other things that this is like metaphorically referencing. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we used this analogy with toys earlier. Yeah,
there might have been some of that. But yeah, the Variety article here, it kind of recaps most of the episode, the big heavy points, which I always think is funny. That's like probably annoying as a podcaster if someone wrote an article being like, here's all the things so you don't have to listen to the episode. Like, yeah, they still like point to the episode, but like I always wonder if, but I guess maybe you get more clicks because maybe an article like Variety wrote about your podcast that maybe people will listen to it. I always think it's funny when I see that being like, hey, we recapped this entire podcast in text form.
Right.
But yeah, kind of then recaps what we already know, which is, the beef is over. Well, however that came to be, whether it was Ethan's theory of it, they gave him a lot of money, or maybe they just like, okay, maybe we're just getting old and we need to stop this shit. That we're probably would both benefit from. We don't have to be best friends, but we could just take this seriously. In case people missed it, basically the long story short of the beef, it started was because it seems like Vin was been kind of. Vin's account is that he always pushed The Rock to try to get the most out of his character. He says as a producer, I think is one quote that's listed in this article, where it says like, I pushed him because I needed him to be the tough guy. I needed him to be, almost scary, like in the movies, And when, on the other hand, I think The Rock sees is more like, I could get into character fine. I don't need you to be a dick, on set.
Right.
And we've seen more
'Cause
accusations of Vin being a dick on set outside of just The Rock, which kind of makes me believe more we've been on the record of saying it probably sounds like The Rock was probably a good professional for the most part. Not sure, maybe there's moments where it might have been escalating over certain things, sure, maybe. But for the most part, there's been other accusations of Vin being kind of an asshole on set for maybe because he's late. I know that was one time he wouldn't show up at the set on time. Don't know what the excuses are for that. But yeah, bullying your coworkers to try to get them to be better actors. I don't know. It's a little.
I can see it too, where it's like, this is nothing on Vin Diesel, but like, you're not executive producer because of your skills as a producer. You got there because you negotiated for that.
Right.
Like, you're obligated on their part to be in that position, not because like. So I can easily see like if you were executive producer as an actor as well, and I'm coming and be like, I don't actually think you're doing anything great right now, so stop trying to push me around. Like, no,
right.
Cut it out, type of thing.
Yeah, and at this point, like The Rock, when he joined Fast 5, right, or 4, was it? It was 5, right?
It was 5. Fast 5.
Where like The Rock was starting to have his up and up in terms of being like one of the more action movie mainstream actors, like go to. Like, I mean, we live in a world where The Rock is, the face of like Jumanji. He was in Rampage, Jungle Book.
Yeah.
Like he's still getting, and like I know everyone shits on him. Jungle Cruise, Jungle Book. I know people shit on him for like Black Adam, but like at the time, people were hyped for that. You know what I mean? Like it was legitimate hype. We can't discount that. Whether the box office numbers say otherwise, I think most people were. I think part of the reason was superhero fatigue for that film, and I think most people heard
and
it wasn't
rock
great.
fatigue, because let's not mince words here. He plays the same guy. That's just The Rock, and like, I feel personally. I guess I'm not going to speak for everyone here. I was just personally like, all right, like I know exactly what I'm getting with his performance. If I see a trailer and he's in it, I know what that dude's gonna be. And that's just, it is what it is. So like, yeah, maybe I don't need to see Jungle Cruise. Maybe I don't need to see Black Adam.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there's multiple factors outside of just The Rock to a degree, but I get what you're saying too. Sometimes, I mean, I see that with like a lot of actors, right? Like it seems like you can make an argument like, oh, Tom Holland's in a lot of shit lately, for example, and it's like, yeah, sometimes that hurts you in a ways. But when you're young like that too, I also think maybe your window of getting as much money as possible, it gets smaller and smaller. So like, I'm just trying to take anything I can get when I'm 26 years old. I don't blame him either. So, or maybe someone like Nicolas Cage took a bunch of roles and people made fun of him for it, but he needed to pay off debt. But yeah, just wanted to bring this one up. And then last thing here, I guess he announced a new movie he's going to be in as of like yesterday. I'm not going to read this whole Instagram thing, but basically sounds like a movie called Kojak, which I looked it up. There used to be a TV show in the 70s called Kojak that had 5 seasons, which is about a police department lieutenant named Theo Kojak. And I guess it's him against the mob. And it sounds like maybe Vin's playing another mob character, maybe similar to what's his name there in the one movie we watched, The Court Case, coincidentally, where he plays forgetting the character's name, but he plays
Guilty.
Find Me Guilty, plays the mobster, and it was like one of his few films that wasn't action based or had stunts in it. It was a drama, a court drama. Yeah, I just wanted to say that just because they announced it, and I looked back and stuff since we've last talked, and he hasn't posted that much outside of his normal kind of things. It was his daughter's birthday a couple days ago. I posted of him, and he says Dom in Cypher. He posted a picture of that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he hasn't. I mean, I don't think his lawyers would tell him to, but he wouldn't. He didn't post anything about the allegations. I think he did go
Right.
off Instagram for like a couple weeks, if I remember correctly. It was a little. He didn't
Mm.
post, but then posted that. Then once he started posting it, he didn't post as if anything's happening. And I've been looking at the comments just to see what people's perception of it is, and there's been I haven't seen one comment. So I feel like, I guess on a PR standpoint, he's doing a
'Cause,
good
I mean, like,
job.
I don't
I guess
think
I don't want to say good
no
job
one's
in the
making a
sense that,
stink
but-
about it,
right.
for good or bad.
Yeah.
You know,
So
like, it's not a stink, but like,
no one's
I don't know what
publicly
I'm trying
like
to say.
saying like, "Hey,
Yeah.
fuck you" or anything like that,
No one
which we
talks
have
about
seen with other similar situations. There is one post he did though, which leads into what we're covering today, which is Vin Diesel as Santiago graphic, and it says Ark the Animated Series now streaming, and he's holding what looks like a cross between a frog and the fish that has the little like antenna thing.
Oh, an
the little,
anglerfish?
The little lure.
to me, it just
yeah.
looks like a murloc from World of Warcraft.
Oh, that too. Yeah, I see that. But he put in his comment section there, hats off to my partners at Studio Wildcard for following their passion expanding the Ark mythology. The animated series is finally here. All love. Top comment says, I love seeing your photos and videos. Yeah, so we're into Ark, which I guess was announced at the Game Awards in 2020. I don't remember watching the Game Awards in 2020. I know you might have maybe watched the Game Awards in 2020.
In 2020, absolutely, we did watch it because that was Last of Us Part 2. That was, I don't know if it's the same, Final Fantasy VII Remake. That was Animal Crossing. That was Hades.
Now that I think
we
about
definitely,
it,
we did an episode on it. Yeah.
maybe I don't know if I watched it live. I know we did 2021. I just don't know if we did 2020. I don't know. It's been too long. Regardless, they announced it at 2020, the Game Awards. They announced the cast as well, and then Gerard Butler, David Tennant, Michelle Yeoh, Jeffrey Wright, Zach McLaren, Elliot Page, Carl Urban, Malcolm McDowell, Alan sorry if I mispronounced this, Tudyk, Tudyk, Russell Crowe, and Vin Diesel, executive producer. I guess this has been in the works for a while. In an interview with Pace, this is all from Wikipedia, by the way. One of the creators of the video game, Jeremy Stieglitz, Stieglitz, began to develop it in 2019 with his coworker Jesse Rapzak to develop a budget for an outline for the show they wanted to make, but was delayed by COVID. Basically, they said they hand-drawn animation ages better, and they made the series 2D, so it's not visually confused with the video games, and didn't use the same game models. And they said the writers, Margaret Bennett and Kendall Deacon Davis, ensured the series was driven by characters that then only action, adding that Bennett made, among other aspects, the characters of Helena feel completely authentic. Because I guess Helena is in the games in some capacity.
Really?
The actor.
I was gonna say
the
before
voice
we
actor,
really start talking about it, like, it is
Yeah.
based off a video game where it's just like it's a crafting survival game with dinosaurs.
If we
all I
like
know.
if folks know us, we know we like Rust. It kind of always looked to
Yeah.
me like another kind of that kind of game where you're waking up on the beach somewhere and you got to start crafting things, but I think you can tame dinosaurs and other prehistoric. I don't know if all of them are like historically accurate or paleontology terms,
be
but they're
some
cool.
fantastical
They're cool looking.
interpretations.
There's some mammals in there, saber-toothed tigers and whatnot. But there's also some, like, I've always noticed, like, futuristic, almost magic is the best way I can describe it. Stuff.
I never even noticed any of that until we
I
started.
don't know, I've seen some people play it. I'm just going off that knowledge, but that was always my interpretation of it. But yeah, Madeline Madden, who is the voice actor for Helena Walker in this TV series, she's also in the video game as Helena Walker, doing voice for that. I don't know how big of a role Helena has in the games. I always thought the games were just...
If I could make a guess,
Yeah.
it is like audio diaries that you find. or like computer log stuff that you
maybe.
find,
Could be.
where it's the old BioShock thing. Because if it's just you and your friends, because remember this is also a multiplayer game. I think, first and foremost, like there's not going to be just like an NPC that's like you're following around. You know what I mean? Like a single.
I should know if
player
there's
game.
like maybe, and folks are maybe listening to this who've played Ark, let us know. Like I'm guessing maybe there's like, just based off what they showed in this TV show, is that maybe there's like villages or something that you go to where, like World of Warcraft, where you can go to a town and there's certain quests you can do that are always
Right.
there for players to
maybe
play.
it's weird. I always thought this game. This is just my thoughts when I started watching this show, or like knowing about the project of this, and like because we know the second game, if that ever comes out, has Vin Diesel as a character, and if I remember correctly, his name was Santiago in that, so it's the same guy in the show. My thought was like, they're making a story out of what this game is, not telling stuff that fans might already know. Like I looked at this as like, okay, yeah, it's just the survival. Now let's like take that idea and tell a story, and that's what the show is. But I might not actually be accurate with that. With that.
I'll say, since it's been in production since 2020, it wasn't until June 2022 that they entered post-production, with Monica Bellucci and D. Bradley Baker added to the voice cast. In December of 2022, with the release of a new trailer, because I know we talked about this off air, where we're like, this is kind of like shadow dropped. I think we just kind of forgot that this did exist. They did do a trailer in 2022, and it was revealed Butler and Crowe would be executive producers in this trailer. And it was announced at the Video Game Awards. So I guess it wasn't like totally out of the blue. Maybe they just didn't do as much marketing for it. But for something like this, I kind of get it though.
They never gave a date for it, I thought. Besides maybe a window, and then it's just like, it's today. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
So I guess in a way, I would say it's kind of shadow drop, also not, because I feel like this is more of a small budget cartoon for Ark fans and maybe fans of just video game stuff, or maybe post watching this, I'm like, I wouldn't know if this would be for kids either, because there is some gore and violence in this. Maybe teens, maybe like
this is like the same type of
15
people
and
that
up.
would watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, like American anime stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
But yeah, so in a way, I guess I think this is for the people who were paying attention to this. So I kind of see like, hey, we don't need to do huge marketing for it. We also probably don't have the money to do big marketing for it anyways. I don't know how much money Ark is getting, you know what I mean, in terms of the studio.
I don't know at this point. I mean, at one point it was definitely gigantic. And who knows, there are these live service games that people kind of treat as the game that they play with their friends, and who knows, I don't know if this how they monetize this game. Maybe it is just a one and done. Which case, then I guess
might
they
be
wouldn't really have that much money.
There might be seasons where certain quests open up or areas open up. I don't know.
Like, is it like Rust, where like they sell skins, or is it like what's that? No Man's Sky, where it's like, no, everything is just always a free update, and we just want people to buy the game.
Because the game isn't a free to play game where they get you in with that, and then you want to get to this, or you want to do these things. Okay, well now you need the $5 or whatever. But from my understanding of what I've seen, because I've seen like some Let's Plays of it, but nothing super deep where I'm like, I could tell you how the game works, really. I just know like there's crafting, you can build things, you can tame dinosaurs, and there is PvP, I think. I don't want to quote that though, but
I would imagine.
Let me just look on the Wikipedia page quick here. Let me just see how it describes.
I know
itself.
There's definitely PvE in it, because I knew someone that played it once, and they were appalled when I was talking about Rust and how exciting it was just to screw people over. Like, that's not what I do in Ark. Like, I'm never playing.
A remake, Ark Survival Ascended, was released in early access for Windows on October 25th, 2023. So I feel like they wouldn't have done that if that wasn't, popular enough. 194 creatures.
That's not nothing.
I'm just trying to see I'm just going to read, I guess, like the first paragraph, how it describes itself. Or no, second paragraph. The game is played from either a third-person or first-person perspective, and its open world is navigated by foot or by riding a prehistoric animal. Players can use firearms and improvised weapons to defend against hostile humans and creatures, with the ability to build bases as a defense on the ground and some on creatures. The game has both single-player and multiplayer options. Multiplayer allows the option to form tribes of players in a server. The max number of tribe mates varies from each server. In this mode, all tamed dinosaurs and building structures are usually shared between the members. There is a PvE mode where players cannot fight each other unless a specific war event agreed upon by both parties is triggered. That's kind of cool. That you can like, hey, can we just build right now? We'll fight in like next week. You know, I kind of like that. That's a fun concept. Imagine you could do that in Rust.
Like, hey,
you could be like, hey, I just want to build
do
right
PvP
now.
on the weekends when we're all on, and we
Yeah.
have time, and it makes it a little bit more fair. It sounded like you said there was a single player mode, and not just like, yeah, you can just play by yourself. Like, yeah, you can play Rust by yourself if you want.
Yeah,
but that's not necessarily single player. Interesting. Yeah,
I
I mean,
based
I knew
off that
basically
trailer we
nothing
saw
about this.
at the 2022 Game Awards, if I remember correctly, of the next Ark 2 game, whatever it's called.
Devin, I'm pretty sure that trailer was 2020.
Was it?
I'm pretty sure it was the same as this, and it was that long ago. I'm pretty sure. It was a
don't remember
long
anymore.
time ago.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like base it off
Folks
if
at
I
home will
was
have
in
to let us
Denver
know.
or
It was
in
not
Baltimore.
2022. We didn't stream our reaction to it. That's made us be like, damn it, we should have.
It's what definitely was a couple years ago for sure. Whatever one it was. But from what I've seen in that sounds like it's going to be a single player like optional thing, or like I said, if this is a World of Warcraft kind of thing when there is already like pre-made villages that are you can't destroy or something, I can see his character being in that. And then once we get into the actual, I guess, talking about these episodes, is he playing two separate characters? Is that the same character? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Why don't we actually just get into it and just talk about the
Yeah.
show itself? So, folks, Ark, the Animated Series, Season 1, Part 1 is what we're discussing today. We are promised that the second half of this season will drop later this year. I imagine by later this year, they don't mean a month from now. I think they would, in time for the holidays, maybe. We'll do an episode about that. It might still be a part of this, if that makes sense. We might count Season 1 as Season 1. But, yeah, so, going into this show, I'm like, okay, yeah, Vin Diesel's in it. That's why we're watching it. He's also, executive producer. He's also executive producer on Ark 2 as well.
Yeah,
I don't know his
I guess we
relation
didn't say this
to-
before, but I remember him being on Instagram, like after they announced it at the Game Awards. I think it was a couple months later. He had like a book of all the creatures in it, and like he is a
he
fan
loves
of the
the
game.
game.
He plays the game.
Yeah.
I don't know how many hours he's put in the game. Not that it really should matter, but how much, I guess, of a diehard he is maybe compared to the average Ark fan. I don't know, but yeah, he is quote unquote a fan of the game.
And I could just, this is mean to say, but you know what? We're in our darkest days right now. We can get a little mean. I can see him being blown away by the concept of people of different cultures of different times being transported to this dinosaur time, and him thinking that that's the coolest shit ever.
I mean, isn't that kind of like what The Last Witch Hunter is to a degree, right? It's like a both old...
He was immortal in that.
But I'm saying like that concept of like a dude who's seen cultures and nations come and go, empires fall or whatever. And even to a point, I guess Riddick is kind of, when you think about it, like it has that kind of both fantasy, especially the second one has that
space fantasy. Oh, absolutely.
Fantasy and science fiction attempt. In my opinion, I feel like it's much more fantasy, but it doesn't matter.
Oh yeah. Because fantasy is cultures and sci-fi is technology. If that makes sense, like
science
that's how
fiction
I feel like movies
to me is
kinda do
also a requirement of, to me, what good science fiction is a critique of our current, though, at the same time. That's usually for me like what makes, like, this is, because science fiction could just be like futuristic stuff is cool, but if it actually isn't talking about our current situations, whether it's politics, culture, whatever.
And there's subgenres and all that stuff too. Films are They can be whatever they need to be, and an animated show like this is definitely trying to be something. I will say, just get right off the bat, Vin Diesel isn't in this group of episodes at all, unless you count the rather long coming soon
At the
teaser
end
for
of
the
the fifth
second part
episode,
at the
or
end,
sixth episode.
and the end of the sixth episode. If you don't count that, then he's not in it at all. And if you do count it, then yes, he's in the last episode for a little bit. I'm not gonna lie too. When I had that realization in episode 5 that unless I have just forgotten who he's supposed to be, he's not in it. Maybe he pops up in the last episode to tease the game or something.
I thought he was going to
so
come.
Yeah, for that last one, I did hover my mouse over because I watched it just on my computer, and I found that Monkey King guy, and I'm like, I guess he kind of looks like Vin Diesel. And then he starts talking. I'm like, it's not him either. Who the fuck is he? And then he shows up as fucking Halo Man or whatever at the end. I'm like, okay, of course he wants to be the coolest guy. But yeah, he did executive produce it. But that what does that really mean?
Could
I
be
would say,
financial backing, or at the most, it could be, yeah, he was in the writing room,
just an agreement,
being like, oh, I like that.
Yeah. He would definitely, excuse me, would be the guy that would actually care. Maybe his contributions might not be the best, but like he cares. That's the one thing we know.
Yeah.
And the reason why we do this show at all is because this is a guy who looks one way. Well, I guess he looks like many different ways, but physically. But we looked at him as like, oh, he's a very one-note actor, but like he also really gives a shit about the stuff he does.
Whether you like it or not, whether you think it's good,
game.
Whether you think it's good or not, at the very least, we know he isn't just
cares.
Because I've seen executive producers who like, I'm like, why would he like they just threw some, oh, I like this. My colleague, my other actor likes this actor. I'm just going to give this guy $1 million to make sure his movie gets on, Netflix or something. We've seen that before, where like it's a financial thing, and I mean, to a degree, I think all executive producers have some sort of goal of financial gain. But for stuff like this, though, there probably isn't that much money involved. This seems much more of a passion project for Vin, if I had to guess. But yeah, I could see him, like, I don't think he's like, in the writer room every day, but like they might send him an early script and he's like, oh, I like this, I don't like this. Here's my thoughts. That whether they roll with that is, I guess that's
how much control does he ultimately have, right? But I mean, so this kind of does feel like it's tying into our other podcast, the Sonic Movie Show, where we review video game movie adaptations.
If anything, we're kind of double dipping on homework a little bit.
Right, because, eventually we would watch this for that show some year. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
No, we don't have to. But unless we revisit it. But we can kind of treat it like that. I mean, we don't really know that much about the games, as we stated already, so this feels like, they're attempting to tell a good story within the setting. I go back and forth on its effectiveness, but again, this is also part 1, so this is an incomplete story. When we do eventually get to watch that part 2 and give our thoughts, maybe we can kind of take the whole thing and assume, because like this is an unfinished story and nothing really concluded anything really. They show a dude at the end like, oh wait, in the coming soon, like, wait, you guys have like a very large town? I didn't even realize that. I thought we were in the town before,
or like a base or something. I don't know, but
yeah, I didn't realize that we were just like a mobile vanguard. But okay, but yeah, like the different flashbacks between the eras that these people are from, and there still isn't a definitive how did we get here answer. I actually kind of thought at some point it was, they did all die at certain points. I'm trying to remember, like, how did
I think
Helena
it took me a couple episodes to
whatever?
rease that. Yeah, Helena's like, I thought it was like a weird nightmare, but I guess that's how she died, was getting shot, it looked like. Because Helena and Elliot Page's character, which I cannot find the name because they were only in one episode. Regardless,
Victoria, I believe.
Victoria. that I thought she died, right? But then, or Helena died, but then it seemed like Victoria died. Maybe they both died. But regardless,
I don't actually think any of them died. I think they got literally transported out of time. The video game people are probably screaming at the screen like, "We know what happens." Blah blah blah. Sorry, we don't. I don't think any of them died. Just the way they kind of talk about it going in, like I'm trying to like, oh, there was a scene where she had a lot of pills. Did she OD on her medication and died? Or I don't think any of them died. I do think that the ending for John, the Native American guy there, where he is in an afterlife and he sees his wife and son. I think that is legit. He actually died, and now he's there.
Yeah.
I think they got transported out of time. I think that's what it is.
But
I
don't know. Maybe someone could correct us. Please tell us if we're wrong.
You know what? There was another show that took place on an island where it was all these different people. How'd we get here? And it was purgatory in the end. That's called Lost, the greatest TV show ever made. It's so great
Sure.
you can't understand it.
That's so great.
Yeah, which also most likely entirely inspired by the very hit video game Myst, spelled with a Y. That was also about time and us being trapped on an island.
I think where it gets confusing a little bit too is because our main bad guy here from ancient Greece or Rome,
Played by Gerard Butler.
he kept saying he wanted to get Gaius Marcellus Nerva. They keep calling him Nerva, so I guess we'll just go with that one. That Nerva wanted to get back.
Nerva should have come here. Sorry.
Nerva had to get. He said he wanted to get the 3 artifacts. We have one of them so far that we've seen.
The green one.
The green one. That they're going to get the 3 artifacts so he can get back to his time. So, like, I guess that helps the point of maybe they're not dead. But then all the scenes where it shows their past, especially like Mei Yin Lee's there, she literally dies in killing the general there of or whatever.
But they don't show her dying. You know what I mean? Like, that's that. They're. I mean, again, it is.
Maybe this is on purpose. Maybe this is on purpose to keep you kind of. Regardless,
well, it's working.
It's working.
I don't know what's going on, and I want to know.
Regardless, they all start on the beach, which is
they'll start in the water.
Start in the water, kind of almost
scary.
drowning.
How many people got eaten?
Well, if were born in a tub, I guess it's kind of like a rebirth for you.
Like I mean, we can all be born again if we accept Christ our Lord and Savior into our hearts.
Yes, sir. By the way, we do run into Bob there, played by Brent Urban there, right? Is that his name? Who's been in Doom? Who's been in he's been in both Sonic movie show stuff we reviewed and Chronicles deals because he's one of the generals or whatever. Carl Urban. I'm thinking of Brent Urban, the football player. Carl Urban.
I'm like, who's he talking about?
Carl Urban. I apologize.
Yeah, he was the World War II guy.
Yeah,
Carl Urban. Yeah,
and he was also in.
Oh, by the way, I'm just gonna throw this out here. I thought that Gerard Butler's character was Russell Crowe, and then at one point I'm like, no, that must be Carl Urban, and like, oh no, it's Gerard Butler. So I had all these actors mixed up completely.
Yeah. But
because I'm also thinking one of them was Vin Diesel.
Yeah, I guess. By the way, though, Carl Urban's character Bob, this is from IMDb, is a reference to the game specifically, aka Beach Bob, which is a label usually derogatory applied by the Ark multiplayer community. Yeah, or for Rust's equivalent would be calling them nakeds. So Beach Bobs are so named due to their preference to remain in the beach areas where it's safer rather than venturing inland to more hazardous and difficult areas. So there you go. That's a laugh for the fans, I guess. I like how he died, though. Again, I think it set the tone for this show because I was like, okay, she's going to get into this tribe and learn the ways of crafting. And they're like, no, fuck it, he's dead. And I'm like, oh.
It also implied later on, retroactively, we're like, oh yeah, that dude was never a part of anything. He was just on his own.
Yeah, he was just trying to survive. He was kind of a noob. Also, I want to point out with the fact that, he didn't seem like a noob. She was definitely like a noob in the sense of the time that happens in the show. My interpretation is throughout this show that there's been like years of conflict. Like they've been on this island for a long time.
I get that as well. Something similar.
Like the
Not
alliance they
recent.
keep talking about.
Okay, like
they're like that's
at the
got to
end,
been
like
at
he's
least
got
a year ago.
giant Roman palace built. You don't do that in a year.
Yeah, even with slave labor. Um, uh, but yeah,
I
like,
also
people
think like it's obviously because that's how she's introduced. Like it's not like everyone popped up at once. Like it just keeps happening. And so yeah, like there's a lot of Bobs popping up over time, and how many of them don't even make it to the beach? You know what I mean?
right.
I do want to point one thing out. And I'll get back to you. You know, he talks about like. Yeah, like he throws her the outfit that she wears for the rest of the show, apparently, and she's like, oh, why aren't you wearing anything? And he's like, I spent my whole life wearing a uniform, and now I'm free. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, it's a critique or whatever you want to say on like the modern industrial complex, you know, my chains and blah blah blah. No, the man was in World War II in the Allies. Like that. What do you mean?
I like how
Like,
he
you're
asked,
the good guys. It's like
did we
the
win?
only. That's the closest to a black and white war you could probably ever get that I know of as an uneducated man here in history. Like, what do you mean? Like,
think
you
there's an
have that
argument for
opinion
that.
on it?
Yeah.
Um,
I was gonna say I do
close.
think it's funny though that he's like, oh, did we win? I would have been like, if I was in that situation, I'd be like, no, just to fuck with him, be like, because he wouldn't know. I mean, that's why I'm here. The Nazis won, and they fucking sent us back to prehistoric time.
Yeah, that's what you tell him. That's what you tell him.
Because then you have power over him. See, gotta be. It's like Survivor. You gotta manipulate people. Don't do that. I'm joking, of course.
I did like that he was like, "You can't be a scientist. You're a woman." But then that's when he died.
There was actually. I'm gonna give this show some credit for in a supposedly in a world where the woke right is around and is seeping supposedly. This game is actually very explicitly, I think, at moments, kind of political, especially for Helena's character, her backstory with her mom being like an activist, and how she
indigenous people activism.
yeah, and how that's kind of haunting her as a character of like that's reason she's was afraid to take action and speak up, because she and she was sad that she didn't at when she felt like she needed to. Just thought it was good. And then obviously Helena is in a woman and woman relationship, a lesbian relationship, and I don't know. I'm just curious if how Ark fans interpreted that, because gamers historically don't like when there's gay relationships. It's forced upon us.
I think
or whatever.
that the Ark, what I know, I think that is it's a niche that is separate from a lot of.
I hope so. I hope it's a cool
the types
game.
of Gamergate types of chud. Just like when you hear about like Warframe out of the blue, like that's a thing that's just as niche and obscure to a lot of people as Ark, but like it's got like a community that doesn't shut up about it to each other, and they're off. They're their own tribe, and these Ark people are their own tribe, and I can see that being.
I hope they just took it. I hope it was good because I liked it. I'm like this from the first like 10 minutes, not even 5 minutes of this episode, I'm like, or the first episode. I'm like, okay. I just thought it was gonna be she's gonna go with Bob and she's gonna learn the ways of the cavemen basically, and I was like, I wasn't interested in that. When they killed him off, they're like, oh, actually there's already factions established, and they're kind of showing like, okay, everyone's from different time periods, and there's some political differences because of that, at moments kind of hinted at.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? That's wow, you're not just
some of these people come from a place where a week ago they had a god king.
Yeah. But I just thought it was. I want to give them credit for that because for what they are trying to do, I feel like they easily could have played it safe and been like, "We're all from our time," and then that way we don't have to. We could have just made Helena a single woman, and then or a dude even. We just could have made her a white dude and called it a day. Like, no, we try to do a different story and have it actually tie into what makes her character act the way she does, and why she's maybe afraid at certain points to take action, and then eventually she becomes kind of a leader of sorts, and isn't afraid to take action. So yeah, I want to give the show credit that, 'cause that's my biggest, like, I think, takeaway. I was like really like pleasantly surprised by the amount of, like, hey, we're gonna show the equivalent of a Black Lives Matter protest in this show, and showing the conflicts they were having in this show, and then we made that part of her backstory. They could have just not done. They could have just made her a scientist and called it a day. They're like, no, we want to give her more part of her identity in this show.
And we'll see more of that. You know, again, this is part 1, so like my part 1 reaction is like, yeah, but what did they say? Okay, yes, that's just like, probably like you said, backstory, you know, in action, etc. What did they say? Well, they're not done saying. So I guess, to be fair, we give it credit that it's still.
Or
going,
they had I really liked John's character a lot, because he's a Lakota Native American, and him like missing his family, but him like taking in Anika there to be kind of his daughter. But then
not
how, like,
Anika.
or not Anika, who is it?
Alessi.
Alessi. Sorry, I just saw the first. I sorry, missed it. Yeah, Alessi, played by Devery Jacobs. But no, I liked his story. And they kept showing more background. I actually really like when they were going backwards to tell more about these characters. It wasn't just always action. But when you had that and then you had the action, I was like, oh, I'm liking the pacing of this more than I thought it would. I really thought it was going to be, we need to learn how to tame dinosaur episode.
You're right. You're right.
Like, I'm glad it went the way it was, where like there's already established factions. Here's the bad guys. Here's the people who tried to form an alliance against him and failed. And now they're kind of
they
just
reveal
scattered.
who was the guy that backstabbed them, and it was the
I liked his
British man.
I kind of liked his character because he's just peak. Like, he to me is the scariest of all of them, because he isn't just brute force, I want to conquer. He is so invested. He's invested in the concept of, because from his time period, of evolution and Darwinism. And he's like, yep, Darwinism is so real. That's why we need to wipe out certain people, or certain people need to live, which is where a lot of fascism comes from.
He's also that cliche of like, oh, you know, the big bad guys, you know, right-hand man or his scientist, his whoever, you know, is actually scheming to like throw him over, and can pretty quickly, he's actually in charge, but who knows, there could be we don't know how this is going. Vin Diesel's going to show up. I don't even know if he's supposed to be good or bad, or if he's just supposed to be cool.
And if he's the same character that we saw in the cinematic of him riding the dinosaur,
right?
It could be him without
God, you
armor.
know what? I just realized, because like everyone here, no one is further in the future than Helena. It's going to be him. He's going to show up as Master Chief, you know what I mean, in his blue or his silver like power armor. And he's going to be from the future, and he's going to have all the answers on what the Ark is, because it's from his time, because of this corporation. That's my fear. What's your fear? Because here's the thing. And I talk about Lost, and I talk about Mist earlier, but it's very similar. Like, we're stuck here. We don't know what's going on. This is confusing technology. And that dropping you in keeps you engaged until they need to actually tell you what's going on. And it's so easy to drop. That's what Lost did. Lost itself, because it had to finally say what the fuck was going on. It couldn't just be like, it didn't matter. It was about these people dramas. And this, video games don't do that. Especially a video game kind of like Ark, where like that's their shtick, is why. You know what I mean? So eventually they are going to say what's going on here.
I do like
my
that.
fear is disappointment.
I do like that once in a while too, where like, I mean, I think it's one of my favorite things in like a lot of like science fiction in some regards, where it's like not everything needs to be explained to you. It just is. And that can just be cool in itself. Not everything needs a huge backstory. No offense to like Star Wars nerds, where there needs to be, oh my god, this lightsaber's from this. I don't care. Like, if it looks cool, and it's about the characters themselves who are currently present, I don't need, like, cool, you can throw an Easter egg in there, don't get me wrong, but like, I get what you're saying, where we don't need someone to come back in time and be like, We just know this shit is powerful.
This is why. Yep. Here's the thing. And you talk about Star Wars, and yeah, granted, you know, like I've absolved George Lucas because you know what I realized, he made movies for children, not for 40-year-old men who used to be children, which is 100%. What the Disney Corporation is doing, right? And I guess, you know, whatever, but like, fine, whatever. And that's saying that that's not real, that's not valid either, but like, to say George Lucas had it wrong is whatever. You know, in that very first Star Wars movie, when Obi-Wan gives Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, he's talking about like, oh, his father and I fought together in the Clone Wars, and I remember seeing, I don't know if it was a Twitter post or something, some comment on someone on the internet, either our age or younger, because right, we weren't there in '79 or whenever that movie came out, being like, you know, now knowing the context of the Clone Wars and this, what it means now, like, oh, imagine coming out of theater and being like, oh man, what was the Clone Wars? And it's like, I can easily see like no thoughts because it didn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just like, do you know
matter.
anything that happened in Nam? My grandfather fought in Nam, and this, like,
or it's
that's all you know. It's a thing that happened.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, that's context enough.
I think even a better
needs to be
explained. I think a better example in terms of, and these are like the best movies of this genre is Lord of the Rings, 3 movies.
I knew you were gonna say that.
I know we've said it before. I think on the show, maybe I know we've talked about it, at least privately, where it's like he found the perfect balance of knowing how much to explain certain things and letting other things just stand by themselves and just be cool. And hey, if you want to really know more, go read the books, I guess. Like,
read the Silmarillion, if you dare. The most unreadable thing. I tried.
Like Mines of Moria, that whole section, like he gives just enough to be like, okay, you should be scared of this place, whatever.
Right.
And then uses certain environmental things to be like, okay, everyone died here. But like, they show just enough in that stuff.
Our reaction of Gimli being distraught and surprised that it happened, because who knows how old this dude is? Who knows how long it's been since he's been here? And also, like, the movie adaptations, obviously, we suck Peter Jackson off enough on this show about how great and crazy that fact that they happened at all. But like, you know, not every movie has a Cate Blanchett opening that's as perfect as that's an exposition dump. That movie begins with an exposition dump, and it works.
Yeah, because he showed just enough to get you to where, okay,
it's intriguing and it's interesting, and it's not explaining. And then, okay, so then what happens? You know, granted, you can. Yeah, you don't have to talk.
Like they're like, here's the seven, or here the 7 kings or whatever it was, and it's just like, I don't know who the fuck those people are.
And you can forget all of that too, and it doesn't change the movies.
Right.
Because guess what? As a kid, I completely forgot all of that stuff. Like,
there's the 7 kings in the men or whatever.
It was like 9. It was the 9 kings of men. There's like 3 elves and like 5 dwarves, or I don't remember.
Yeah, but it didn't matter because it's just. It sounds cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. We're on the same page.
Hopefully,
but I agree with you. But I agree with you.
Show's gonna go.
If we did get backstory into the Ark stuff, I have a feeling you're right that we'll get some sort of person from the future. I mean, I guess it does set that up that like, Helena's the only one of our current time. Everyone's been in the past, so what's the chances that someone's from the future? Pretty high, I guess. Right? She can't be the oldest of them, you know what I mean? In terms
I'll just throw it out there. There was a guy that they freed a bunch of slaves, and then Mei Yin is
oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
And there's a guy who's just upset the fact that this is his life now. He says, I used to work at a coffee shop. So he must be at least from like the 50s or up onward. Until Helena's time. Yeah. Whenever they had coffee shops.
I mean, I think John, who's the Lakota Native American character there, that's got to be like no later than like 1920s. But they said he went to the white man's school, so it makes me think it's a little bit later around that time where...
I think it's cowboy time, which I guess technically does end in the 20s, which is
20s, 30s. Yeah,
they made a whole video game about that. It was called Red Dead
Killers of the Flower Moon, for example, which is a real thing, or based in reality, is I think late 1930s, like going into World War II, and which I think that's why I like that movie, because I feel like it's one of those movies where it's like, oh yeah, you think all that stuff happened 200 years ago. It's like, no, your grandfathers
Just one.
could know about this shit, like,
Yeah.
or could have been involved, so yeah, but no, I really do like the concept of them coming from different time periods and kind of showing those flashback. I think it just helps with the pacing, because I feel like if it was just straight on, okay, they go from point A to point B, meet this new character, have this fight. Like, even the fights, I feel like were done at certain times in a decent way. Like, I feel like the last two episodes, I feel like they were building up to it, and then they were, good fights. I mean, the fight between Nerva and Mei Yin, where she like goes in the smoke and shit, was pretty sick. I liked that fight. And then like the big dinosaur at the end there that John kills basically with his last arrow shot.
Yeah.
I love John's character. I think he's probably my favorite character in this. I think he had the coolest backstory, and my only critique is, and I think it was kind of maybe, I don't know if it was on purpose, but I feel like John there always seemed like every time they were going into some situation where there was going to be violence or combat, he's always seemed to be like, this could be it. I might not be coming back to his daughter, Alicia. I'm like, every time he's like the one time when they were actually getting attacked by they were shooting fireballs and they were doing Lord of the Rings basically with the long neck dinosaurs there, and shooting like cannons or whatever, they were catapults, whatever they're doing to shoot the fireballs. The way he was talking to her, I'm like, okay, this is where he's gonna die. He's gonna like hold the line. He's gonna use the laser gun, and then they're gonna get the laser gun. That's what I thought, and they didn't do that. So like, there's multiple instances in this show where they didn't do what I feel like a lot of other shows probably would have done. Maybe because I've grew up watching some stuff like this, whether it's Batman or whatever, and I caught a little bit of Avatar, and we did watch a little bit of Avatar for the show early on.
You still have my Blu-ray set.
I do. But like, I feel like they just kept every time I thought it was going to go in one direction, they didn't. So maybe your prediction might not happen based off the fact they had, I guess, at least for me when I was watching, I'm like, oh, they didn't go this direction. I thought
and
they
this
would.
season isn't over. They technically didn't finish the story that they wanted for this season. I don't know if they had two parts in mind and they had like two arcs in that sense, or if it was just literally just two arcs. One, because eventually it will be two arcs. Because like, I look at it like, what is it? It's the old I forget what the quote is and who even said it, but when you're watching like a serialized detective show, the killer is a new character who has a lot of screen time, right? So like the economy of what's on screen dictates importance. And Mei Yin got a lot more time than John, so like my prediction was she's gonna die because they'll have more time for other characters. But who knows? That might be the end of this first season. Might be something like that. And like John was a smaller part because yes, we can use him to be a jumping point for Alessi, who is going to be a probably more important character moving forward. I also like, okay, so to reiterate too, my thought on that stuff, like, again, I forgot that there was two parts when I started this. I thought this was just one season, and then they might make a second season.
I didn't know that either until we talked about it, so that's fair.
I know we knew about it when it first dropped because we had the conversation of do we wait until the second part's in, but like, I think my thought was they might not make a second part type of thing. Anyway, again, knowing that I did not know that there was a second part already kind of looks like it was already mostly done. I'm like, God damn, why did they even get Jeffrey Wright if they weren't going to put him in a character who is in more than 3 scenes? You know what I mean? Like, because he's a great actor, and you could tell, like, that role is working for him, but, like, man, he's barely in. Oh, he's a lot more in the second half. I see, because, he is taking up a bit more role because John's gone. Seemingly in that very long coming soon. There was a few characters that I feel like we didn't really get too much of them, but they seem like they might be, a lot more in the second one. There was this dude popped up at the end, the Monkey King guy, or
the Prophet, I think they call him.
Prophet, yep. And then I forget what her name was, but the gladiator lady. They clearly show her not fall to
Really
her
good.
death because she lands in a river. And yeah, she's in the coming soon thing. Gladiatrix is her name. At least that's credited on IMDb. Is that?
Yeah. Gladiatrix Domina or whatever her full name is, something like that. Yeah.
I think Domina is like the title because
Yeah.
she also calls Nerva Dominus. But that okay, so like television, right? You have this overarching story you're telling, and not every episode is a continuation of the previous episode. In the case of like how a movie is structured, it's not like they took a movie and chopped it up, right? And then just rounded off the beginnings and ends to make them standalone. Television often has not necessarily bottle episodes, but episodes with a singular plot that helps reinforce a character's motivation, changes something, etc. And that this episode with the mining slaves and gladiatress looked like it was, to me, like, oh, that's what it is. It's helping to define Elena's inaction sometimes and hesitation to fight, especially with the dude that goes to plead, and then it's very clearly he's running off to alert the dudes.
Yeah.
Why didn't she kill him? Type thing. But like that character specifically challenged a little bit of that, but I really feel like they didn't do anything to make her have a statement too much. But then, they're bringing her back anyway. Okay, there's more. That's my kind of thing. Like you talked about, like your fear of being paced in a way of like, this is the episode where we teach you how to train the dinosaur. Like in that type of show, everything would be more
Singular.
insular, episodic, I guess. Serial, whatever. And this
Captain
is
Crunch.
and it goes for and against what we watched, because on the one hand, I do kind of want some things, especially if it's straight to streaming, you dump it all at once in parts, I want it to feel more like a movie paced because it's bingeable like that. But the other hand, I could be one of the many people, and it's nothing against the show, it could be any show, but I could be one of the many people that will never watch the second part because it's not available right now. And so what they watched, they're not going to remember much, because how did it end again? I watched it today, hours ago. How did it end again?
With
type
John
of thing. Like,
dying,
it's very
and
easy for that to happen.
And they were going to
like,
the
what did
next
we
spot.
accomplish? I don't know.
They basically did a terrorist
There are
attack
people that
on,
that just do that with shows where they
on
don't
Nerva.
finish them. I know how it ends, but my point being is that, like, what did they really accomplish? Type of thing overall. Did we win? The artifacts.
It does feel
there
like
are people that are
halfway
just
mark.
never going to know that,
Yeah.
and like their memorization of the show, because it isn't very, super episodic, and kind of how I mean, it almost has less of an identity because there's not. It feels more of a singular continuation. But who knows? I could just be talking out of my ass, and the second half will tie it all together. It's all up to Vin Diesel and his character. We talked about animation briefly. I just want to get your thoughts on that. I would say very briefly, like, this is a lot better than I was expecting, legitimately, from the animation. This is on par with on par, honestly, which is crazy to me, with like Legend of Korra, that Avatar: Last Airbender kind of sequel series, and that's a Korean studio, I believe, that then also have done other things. They did the Critical Role animated show, I believe. It was on par with that, and even the Mortal Kombat, Scorpion's Revenge. I almost said Legend of the Scorpion,
Legend
or whatever.
of the Scorpion.
Yeah. Scorpions Dance twice. Dance of the Scorpion. On par with that, we're like, oh, this is better than like made for Cartoon Network animation style, where we have a small budget, and it's not the expectations on Western adult animation, and usually that means Family Guy and The Simpsons, but like stuff like this, there's not really many things to point to. It's often very low expectations for a show. You know what I mean? A Western anime type of thing. Much better than I expected. I think I could have summed that up a lot better. That's just how I said it all. What did you think about the animation, though?
Yeah, I think it was good. To me, like, the big thing was it being about dinosaurs, right? Like, how do they look? And I feel like they all looked pretty cool. I feel like all the characters, like I feel like they all tied together well, like in terms of like their attire and whatnot. Nothing ever felt out of place in terms of just general design. But in terms of like the actual like animation of when things are moving, I feel like it was pretty good for what I'm imagining is not a big budget TV series here, where there's going to be in grand total there's 6 episodes right now. There's going to be maybe 8 more.
Yeah, 14 I think is going to be the total for this season.
I think it looks pretty good. I mean, I think there's some parts where like when they're talking, maybe like it could have been done a little bit, but like this is really nitpicky. You know what I mean? Like, oh, she said this word, and it kind of I didn't really see that in the lips. But I also know they're probably translating this for other audiences, you know. So like they can't make it too specific either. That like if there's any dubbing out there, they don't maybe want to. Because I don't know how big. Like we're Americans, so I don't know how big Ark is outside of North America. Could have a big following in other countries, so they maybe don't push it too much. But no, I think the action sequences are pretty good. Like they're memorable to me. Like I said, I remember immediately I thought of like the Mayin and Nerva fight on like the burning tree fort that they had, and then a lot of like the fire effects were good. The blood was very well done. Like I said, that caught me off guard. So it was at the beginning. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be much more violent than I thought it was gonna be. I really don't have any like critiques outside of just like I guess you could have done these little parts a little better if I really like focused on it. But like who's doing that,
like
I guess on average
it wasn't animated at a full 24 or 30 frames per second. It's animated on 2s for a lot of stuff. Like sure, and like there was some, at least one I could definitely confirm was a 3-dimensional CG scene with the 2D characters in it that quickly pans through because would be a lot easier to animate that. Like, yeah, sure, okay, animated at a full 24 frames a second. Like, no one ever does that for hand stuff like this. No, I thought it was great. We didn't really talk too much about the dinosaurs themselves. I will say I'm not much of a dinosaur guy. I don't really care too much about the dinosaur fights. I know that's different than you. So what did you think about the Sauruses and their dinosauric behavior?
like I said, I think some of them are inspired by real dinosaurs, but they take liberties with them, which I'm not a like going to be a dinosaur purist either. But no, I mean, as I've made jokes on the show about Dino Crisis, and I do like Dino Crisis, but obviously I always joke that it's like the pinnacle of gaming and that it influenced everything, because it did. Dino Crisis 2, gaming wouldn't be the same. Yeah, Rouge the Bat and Dino Crisis should be memorialized at the Game Awards, in my opinion. But no, I think the dinosaurs are cool. I liked that, there was kind of like T-Rex, but not T-Rex that they had that were friendly. I think as a kid, and like I said, I don't know if this is mostly for kids, but I could see kids maybe watching it. Not like 4-year-olds, but like if you're 9 or 10, it's fine, in my opinion. The gore is a little crazy sometimes, but like I don't know. I grew up watching that shit, so
it was probably maybe a little bit too much for some kids.
This is no different than Jurassic Park, though, and I know a lot of kids who like Jurassic Park in terms of its violence, dinosaur violence. I meant more like people getting stabbed and whatnot. Like there's a little bit more blood maybe than you would see in Jurassic Park.
A spear through the back of the head and out the throat.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like I grew up watching Predator and Alien and all that shit. So like to me, I was like immune to
the
it.
American youth is too coddled today.
Yeah. But I'm saying, I guess, from like a dinosaur fan, if you're more of a younger, like usually people tie dinosaurs to younger audiences, whatever. But I'm just gonna say that like I think some of the dinosaur battles were cool, and I thought like were hyped up when they like revealed the giant dinosaur. Like I was worried it was gonna like dinosaurs were gonna kind of put as like they're just vehicles. Like no, like oh we saved like a cool one for the end where he's bigger. He's like 3 times the size as the T-Rex ones, and he fucks them up instantly. Like I think if you're into that kind of shit, I think it hits the bill. I guess my thing,
dinosaurs.
And I did like that they had like the spitting ones there in the pit scene where they use. I know they did a good job of like using them for certain reasons rather than like everyone has them, so like they're not as scary or as unique in that way where like everyone has a T-Rex. Like they both sides did have a T-Rex, and I think that's cool for like as a kid I was always like, why is T-Rex always the bad guy? I like T-Rex, so I liked it when there's a good T-Rex. That's why I liked Godzilla, because sometimes he's a good guy, you know.
I mean, it's also, Land Before Time. You got Chomper, a little baby T-Rex,
Yeah.
And when he sings, I'm gonna have friends for dinner, and he's like, oh, it's double entendre because like you could read it as, oh, he's gonna eat his friends, but no, his friends are coming over for dinner.
Right. No, dinosaur action gets my thumbs up. I'm glad they weren't kind of just turned into vehicles, because that's what I was worried about early on. But then they were like, nope, they're going to be in here at certain situations.
Kind of like how elephants are often in historical battles. It's just like, and how movies are like, yeah, they're just out there.
Yeah.
Just,
I mean, I want to be on
vehicles.
the Bronchiosaurus fucking walking tank thing. I want to be on one of those. I don't want to be on
any of them. I don't want any of them to ever be near me.
You don't like the dinosaurs?
I just don't. I don't. No. They're dead for a reason.
If Jurassic Park was real, would you go?
No.
Why?
They were dead for a reason.
You're not by their fault, by asteroid space.
By God's fault. They're dead for a reason.
No.
You know what else was dead for a reason? The old rankings we used to do, because we have a tier list now. Why don't we kind of wrap up the show here by talking about reiterating our Chronicles of Diesel's tiers, and then finding a home. So far, preliminary home for Season 1 of Ark The Animated Series. All right.
Yeah.
So we have 7 tiers, S, A, B, C, D, E, F. Nothing is in the F tier right now. Yes. Yeah. I'm going to read off just the stuff in each tier here. Right now we're showing the S tier in release order. It's Saving Private Ryan, The Fast and the Furious, Triple X, Fast 5, Guardians of the Galaxy, Triple X Return of Xander Cage, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Avengers Endgame, and Fast X. All those smaller letter grades next to them is the Vin Diesel's performance in it, which we will grade preliminarily for Season 1 as well. Probably not going to be very high. That's the S ranks. For the A ranks are films in release order, again. Awakenings, Pitch Black, Wheelman, I won that. I made that A rank, baby. Riddick, The Fate of the Furious, Avengers Infinity War, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The B ranks are as follows. The Iron Giant, Boiler Room, A Man Apart, The Chronicles of Riddick, The Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay, Find Me Guilty, Fast and Furious 6, Furious 7, The Last Witch Hunter, F9 The Fast Saga, and The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Our C ranks are Knockaround Guys, The Pacifier, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, Los Bandoleros, Wiz Khalifa featuring Charlie Puth, See You Again, D and Diesel, Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, Bloodshot, I Am Groot, and I Am Groot Season 2. Our D ranks are
I am Groot. Nice to meet you.
Yes. Multifacial, Babylon AD, The Chronicles of Riddick, Assault on Dark Athena, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Fast and Furious Crossroads, Thor, Love and Thunder. And our E ranks are Strays, The Chronicles of Riddick, Dark Fury, Riddick Blindsided, and Fast and Furious Supercharged. Again, all these were in release order.
Amusement
within
park
their tiers. Right.
Yes, that's right, folks.
Studios
we
ride.
reviewed an amusement park ride that unfortunately we couldn't go in person to go see.
One of these days we will. Right?
I don't think
Eventually
it's in there
you're going to go to
anymore.
Universal. Really?
I think Universal swapped that one out. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, man.
I'll have to look.
The world isn't
one of these
missing
days.
much.
If we seriously want to go to it, then we'll dive deeper and see if it's around. But from what I heard, I don't think.
Didn't seem like we were missing much. Any case, Ark, the animated series, Season 1, which we will just refer to as Ark, the animated series, because until they do a Season 2, we ain't writing Season 1 down. I ain't doing that.
Right.
That's Telltale nonsense. They used to do that with all their games. Season 1 of this, Season 1 of this. Like, you only made sequels to 2 of the, 10 series you did.
To be fair, like, when you look up something on the Google's IMDb, they'll be like, Season 1, because it's just one season. Like the hit show Surface on CBS.
Or the hit show
I loved as a kid. Or Kid Nation, also on CBS, I think.
No, never heard of either of those. Surface, Kid Nation.
I remember we talked about Kid Nation, but that's another story. It's okay.
I don't.
It was a long time.
Ark, the animated series so far. This probably will change as we get into the second part later in the year. You know, I think you like dinosaurs, so why don't you go first? What do you think? What are you really thinking?
Well, I mean, even just based on our conversation, it's hard for me to find any like huge glaring negatives or I really wasn't bored watching this. I actually surprisingly had a lot of fun. Generally speaking, like animation, like adult animations usually are hit or miss for me. Like I didn't really like Avatar, I know is like one of your favorites, and that like didn't really like hit me as much as maybe other people have. But I
I'll
also
hit
like
you
am
instead.
picky when it comes to like I've been trying to watch anime since I'm going to Japan later this year. I'm like, I want to be able to like go to the anime store there and be like, I know three of these. I want to be able to identify something other than Evangelion. So I've been trying to watch some stuff there, just even if it's a couple episodes, be like, oh yeah, I guess that's what Gundam is. And so I'm kind of picky with that kind of stuff of like, I definitely prefer live action. I like to see people acting. No, that's no offense to voice actors or anything like that, but animations usually I'm kind of picky on. But I did find myself enjoying this. I think the pacing, like I said earlier, is pretty good. I didn't like, and if there was a part of me, I'm like, okay, whatever. It moves pretty quickly to an action sequence. Um, I think all the characters are good. I liked John. I like Mei Yin. I like Helena. Like none of the characters I've really found like annoying or boring. Like I was just kind of like, yeah, these are solid characters. I'm interested in their backstories. I like the concept of they came from their time, and like there's they'll talk about that and be like, wait a minute, like you're a girl, you could be a scientist, and or the backstory with Helena there with her and her mother, and also her relationship and whatnot, and her confidence. And I feel like that's kind of the first couple episodes. It takes her a bit to get her confidence, and now even in episode 6, she's like one of the leaders of the group, but yet she's only known them for a little while, and she's already like made her kind of impact. Yeah, I really don't have any like strong negatives, and I don't think we talked about too many. And even just going with our, this is,
I think our negatives are like this isn't fair because it's technically not done. Or
yeah. We'll see how it kind of lands as a whole, but I feel like right now, for me, it's a strong B. I feel like if the second half uh continues this, or maybe doesn't share everything that we like you said, I think we both agree we don't need there to always be a huge exposition or info dump, or there needs to. We hope it doesn't go the predictable route of Vin's characters from the future, but it has done a lot of stuff where I thought it was going to be predictably one way. It didn't do that. So I'm curious to see what happens next, and if they can continue to do that, keep me surprised, keep me interested. For me, it's a strong B. I think it has the potential to maybe get into A. We'll see. But I also
interesting.
could see if it ends kind of how we saw it. I think it could be, in the C range. I don't think this is bad. Like from the other stuff, like I'm just looking at what's in D, D and E there, and we've done the Sonic movie show, and I know these rankings are similar to that. Like if you're looking at it from a video game perspective, I would say it's in that B, if not even maybe there's a conversation to be A compared to what other video game adaptations we've watched. This is, I think, does a good job of, what from my understanding of the game, it does a good job of kind of adapting what it needs to, and then also just being a standard story when it needs to be too. So
Interesting.
I'm going
I'm
B, strong B.
similar. I don't know yet. I go back and forth on B or C. And that's mainly because it's not done. As of right now, if this was the whole thing, this would be a C to me because this is a very disappointing story because we really didn't get a conclusion. And they want to go some places with some of the characters, but we don't really have too much resolution with it. I think personally, I would put it at a C for now, but with an expectation that if it doesn't like tank itself, it would probably raise to a B at the minimum. with this second part coming out, if that makes sense. To yeah, maybe even A, because it's I surprised by the animation mainly, like production on it was what surprised me the most.
Yeah, the design is very good overall.
The thing I couldn't think about when I was talking about the Western animation stuff that I was afraid it was going to be similar to was that Dead Space thing we watched. I'm like, yeah, that wasn't that great visually. It was
fine.
fine.
Yeah.
This is a lot better looking than that. That's where I'm at. I don't know. I feel like I personally would be comfortable putting it at C and just seeing where it goes when we revisit the season when it gets completed.
If I could make an argument in terms of your critique of it having a conclusion, even at this midway mark, I mean, I think that's how television shows sometimes need to work, though. You can't have all the answers in one season or even the first half, obviously. But like in the end of the season, there could be another cliffhanger that ends into a season 2.
Yeah, and then that becomes a critique on the season as a whole. Did it have an overall arc or not? Because that, no pun intended, arc with a C. Because we are reviewing the season itself. Ultimately, it's not like if there is a season 2, we're not going to now combine that with season 1, kind of how we're doing with these two parts. So, like, presumably, stories do have their seasons tell one big arc, and then there's obviously.
I mean, I feel like this half has an arc.
Because if it didn't, if you said if it did the major cliffhanger similar to how this part ended, if the second part did that, we would critique it like, okay, they didn't finish a story, so to speak, for this.
I feel like they did with some characters. I think like John
obviously.
fit. Yeah, I think there is still like I think some arc again of at least for me is like the group as a whole. But like I think Helena is the biggest example of her personally. But I think as a whole the group is moving towards the growth being like having to take action, having to make the decisions that's best for the group. I think at first there was even in the third episode when we meet John and Mei Lin there, that like they're like, oh, we can't agree anymore because we made a decision together and it's your fault it failed, as opposed to making decisions as a group. I feel like that arc has already kind of been established to me, is that like now they got to work together again, and John did one basically for the whole group. He took that sacrifice. And even more so for his daughter.
He was willing to, like you said, the entire show. But no, that's not a critique. It's just a funny joke. But
yeah. So for me, I just think like I don't think there hasn't been anything told either. Like at the halfway mark, I think it was a story of John, Mei Lin, and Helena's story there. That I think theirs are kind of been told. I think Helena has more growth to do, maybe, and taking the next step of being like one of the. I think she's already kind of shown to be a leader at the tail end there, but I think she'll be even more so in the second half. Is probably where I think that would make sense to go.
She's evolving past Squirtle, but she's not Blastoise yet. She's still going to be Wartortle.
Yeah, you're still gonna go
evolution.
Wartortle.
Because
yes.
It was,
if she was Pichu, now she's Pikachu, but then she has to become the more arguably, in my opinion, Raichu's got to be up there. People sleep on Raichu, I think.
People do sleep on Raichu, and that's on them. But sometimes you pick up the wrong rock and you change, like cocaine and crack. We need to come to a decision of where to place this right now.
Yeah.
I
mean, I'm just saying.
I am under the impression that wherever we do put it, there's a good chance it will bump up higher when we finish.
Yeah, I think the question is like how much. I think that's why like I want to put it.
I don't think it's going to go from like D to S. I don't think that many steps is going to be.
No, I meant like, because to me, like I said earlier, like I could see it maybe being an A depending on how it goes. Because I'm already in a strong B.
He's in a strong.
I'm just looking at.
Folks.
I'm just looking at what's in B. In terms of just my enjoyment, like I think I like this more than a decent amount of like. I think it's up there with some of the B stuff. I mean, I know we had differences though too. So like I could say it's better than the pacifier, and you're like, oh, I like the pacifier more.
No, I think it's better than the pacifier. Okay, and you when you put it like that,
I'm just that's the easiest way for me to find the where to really put it is like looking at what movies are actually there. Because even if I'm iffy between B and C, let's say, like if I'm going in and majority of them are better, if I think it's better than majority of B, then it's got to be a B, and that's where I'm kind of like I like it better than Escape from Butcher Bay by a lot. I don't think I do not like that in B personally.
I actually don't know if I like it more than Escape from Butcher Bay. But again, we came to a consensus on the tiers last December. If you go watch the episode, special episode 6, we throw out everything and we kind of started over. All right, so let's say we put it in B for now.
Like I think a compromise position would be lower B. You know what I mean? Because I said strong. You said
well, there's no.
I know, but I'm saying
ranking within the tiers. That's the whole point of the tiers.
Terms of the BC spectrum. Where where if I'm compromised, I'm already going
and Dinosaur Lands definitely was before BC, so it's in that BC area. All right, fine. We'll put it in B. We'll see where it goes because I can be convinced that it could be A if after all this is said and done at the end of the year, assuming that the season is completed.
Like I said, I think it could be like maybe a C if it goes the route we were talking about of like all of a sudden it's gonna be a Vin Diesel show. Like I'm liking what we got.
It could get worse.
Like, I think we have a core, and I hope Vin Diesel character is more of just another character they encounter rather than it turning.
I can see him being the guy that comes in to just explain everything and be cool on camera, and I'm really fearing that.
Yeah, that's where I would be in the C
Diesel.
territory. I think though, just like looking at what's in D, like I don't know what it needs to do to like. I think I'd have to throw away everything it's built up to like get to the D section for me. Like it, I think it's a very strong first half. Very compared to other things we've watched on this list.
Speaking about Vin Diesel,
yes,
I mean we got to give him a performance ranking so far.
I mean,
E, F. There's no F tier, like for the movies themselves yet, because we haven't had anything in there.
I think tentatively we got to put it at E by default because like we don't know how much he did to. That's the issue. Every time we've done executive, what's another one where we've done an executive producer on that we can like reference, that he isn't also in yet.
Nothing.
So he's always been in something he's executive produced, right? I say we got to put E, but it's more of a we don't know what his character is like, and we also with E we don't. What I've read and whatnot. Like we don't know how much involvement he really had in like the script, the cast, any of that stuff. We don't know. So I think on default putting at E doesn't necessarily make it bad. It's more of just like I don't think we have much information right now to take it anywhere else. Because E also to me doesn't mean bad. It just means it could just be he's an executive producer. We don't know how much involvement it is. It's just lack of knowledge, I guess, sometimes.
Well, there we have it. I have now put it in the B rank with the E Vin Diesel performance. And I scoot up there at the top because this has no room. I'll have to next episode of the Chronicles of Diesel. I'll have to redo how this was because there was exactly 12 spots. It was kind of perfect for that stupid arc. Why'd you have to be B? I guess that's technically how we kind of view now average, right?
I was thinking it from the video game scale too, right? Is like B has always been kind of like it's above average. And that's where I would say this is for sure. Like C is boring to me, starting to get into the boring territory. D is like bad, right? So B.
Fair.
That's what I'm saying.
Fair. Alrighty, folks.
We spent most of the show talking good.
Ark the Animated Series preliminary position on our ranking in tiers is
it's like a power
in the
ranking.
B rank. Excited to see if we ever do get to see the rest of that. Now, like they gave that really long coming soon that showed a lot of emotional beats in it, which I think that was almost came from a fear of people not seeking out the second part. They've really got to make it show like it's actually worth it. I don't know, but like I get it. We'll see. That is coming out the end of this year, but it looks like they did. I don't know. From the scenes they show, it looks like there's stuff from all over. There's clearly stuff in there that is climax.
They might need to like just record some lines and all that stuff. So
well, I feel like with animation, all the lines are recorded before they animate. I don't know how it works. I really don't know how that works.
There might be stuff when they're doing it that they have to redo. Like I think that happens quite a bit. Where I mean, based off even like that Sonic Movie 2 director's commentary episode we just did.
Right.
Where it's
last
like,
of the Sonic movie show.
We either they have to record 100,000 options to go with, or like they might have to go back and be like, okay, we need to change this. Granted, with animation, you could always start with a clean slate and be like, hey, we actually need to redo this entire scene where they go to this village. Like, we just need to do it from scratch. That can happen. But
yeah,
we'll see.
All right. Well, that was a very good episode. Folks, you can find the show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. That's a place still?
Yes.
We're still on Threads.
Threads.
As well as YouTube at Sonic Movie Show. You can go ahead and click that subscribe button right there in the center of the screen. And, there's a video on the right. Click whatever that is. Click it. It's probably, that's special episode 6. You can rewatch the whole how we do the tiers. Maybe that's what we'll put there. I don't know. We're new to this. Follow me on Twitter at Ethan Absolutely. Follow Devin on Twitter at CursonaFun. That's CURSONAFUN. Let us know in the comments below on this YouTube video what you think about the Ark Animated Series so far. Is it good? Was it, okay? We feel like it's pretty good.
Does anyone see the influences from Dino Crisis 2? Let us know.
Oh, of course. Or more specifically, when I played that all almost in one life for the first time on stream, and
got beat by the
it was
tank.
A bulldozer or something. Yeah, tank. It was like all of a sudden there's new mechanics. Like, okay, thanks.
Real gamers adapt, dude. Survival of the fittest, just like dinosaurs.
Well. It's an evolution. All right. Well, thanks guys for watching. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.